Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Welcome to the Sapphic World Book Club. We've been talking about I'm going to call it vengeance because it's a lot of words. And well, I'm happy you could join us.
I'm happy to be here. It's a very, very hot 9:30 a.m. over here in Perth, Australia.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm like at 2 a.m. in the morning being cold, so not jealous. Should we just get in?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a first one in the chat from Tressa, and she says, "Who's your favorite author, and why is it E.J. Noyes?"
Oh, it's not EJ. I keep telling EJ to stop writing these questions. Rosalind Sinclair. I
Ooh,
just,
good one.
yeah, no, I love her Ice Queens, and my favorite book of all time is The Lily and the Crown,
Mm.
and Mia, the pirate, is fabulous, and I just love that book so much. So yeah, Rosalind Sinclair.
How many times have you read it?
Oh, I've lost count. I read at least twice a year, I think.
Oh, wow, that's a comfort read.
Yeah, you think that, wouldn't you? But I mean, there is the most enormous angst in the middle that leaves me in a puddle of tears. So, comfort read.
Every time?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a good book. So maybe we we have to ask Rosalind again and you can ask the questions.
I've got a question here from JP.
Yeah, go.
This is your first intentionally written rom-com. The awkward truth is considered one by some. Was your process different this time in intentionally setting out to write one? Was it any more challenging?
My process. Well, because I wasn't aware when I was writing The Awkward Truth that it kind of really was a bit of a rom-com. Doing it intentionally, yeah, it did change. I leaned a little bit more into the absurd. Um, you know, I was just really conscious of hitting all the comedy marks as opposed to just letting things slide. So yeah, I think it was a bit more intentional.
All right, and Margaret's diaries were such a unique way to allow readers to see Margaret's thoughts and feelings and rip our hearts out. Thanks for that. Was it hard to write in first person when you usually write in third?
No, it wasn't. Margaret had a lot of strong opinions, and I just jotted them down and shared them with you all. And yeah, Margaret was absolutely hilarious to write. I had no problem with her at all, first person or otherwise. Yeah.
I have a question from Jamie. She says it's a silly question, but Van is a frequent character in your book. So I was wondering if Lee owns one or is it one of her dream purchase?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I missed the start. Sorry.
The Van. The Van is one of is a character that
Oh, the van.
the
Right. Yeah.
Van. Yeah. So do you own one or is it one of like those dream purchases?
No and no. I've never wanted to own a van, ever. You know,
So what
it's
is it
just
with the
no.
Van?
Well, she sells muffins. She'd need a van. Very practical. In fact, I didn't want to include a van because there was a van in the previous book, in the fixer, and I was just like, people are going to think I've got a van fixation. That everyone's always driving around in crazy cars. I mean, there was the Beast in the Red Files, which Lauren King drove, another enormously ridiculous car. And I'm like, I do not have a vehicle fixation, people. I don't. I swear it. It's just it was practical.
That's a good reason anyway. So let's dig into the history part of the book. So why did you pick Mary Ann Buggs as like some kind of third main character?
Um, well, I wanted a bushranger, and I thought it would make sense if I've got a Australian crime store and history. We go back, our past is all bushrangers, everything's about Ned Kelly. It made sense for someone like Margaret to probably revere a female bushranger. So all I did was research all the female bushrangers. There are about five main ones. And Marianne Bugg's story, the one that really got me was the myth about her swimming to Cockatoo Island with a metal file in her teeth. Initially, I thought that was accurate until I dug further and found it was just a myth, but that had already captured my imagination. So I decided Marianne Bugg was the one. But I loved the story, and it was reported in all the newspapers at the time that she was put on trial for stealing some bolts of fabric. And she was very, very shrewd. And she could read and write, which was unusual for anyone back in the day, especially the women. So she wrote this really compelling argument about how she could not possibly have ever, Your Honor, stolen this fabric, and here's why. And it got printed in the newspaper, and everyone fell on her side, and she got let off, and the cops were like, curse you, Marianne Bugg. And she just got away with so much shit because she was so smart. And I think it really is no accident that once she left her man, or her man left her, I can't remember which it was, Captain Thunderbolt died pretty quick after that, and she lived on to ripe old age of, 80 something with 19 kids. So, she was smart.
So is there besides you now, is there like a real life expert on bush rangers that is, and was he or she the model for Margaret?
If there is, I don't know. And almost certainly it would be a man, because men just love the whole Ned Kelly mythology. It's really, I don't know what the American equivalent would be of some kind of outdoorsy Paul Bunyan-esque bloke, but yeah, I mean, it's just a bloke thing. So it's kind of funny in its own way. Margaret choosing bushrangers to be her area of expertise when really it's just the blokiest, rugged, individualistic, myth building that there is.
Until now. So maybe you need to
Yeah.
have a display for this book somewhere in a crime, and then just do like a cover around it that says "Fuck Ned Kelly."
Turns out one of
Something.
my beta readers was really into Ned Kelly and knew a lot about him, and said, actually, it's really a shame that Margaret's like bad mouthing him, because he really did have a lot of good going for him. And I'm like, oh shit. It really does have a lot of people who love Ned Kelly in Australia. Oh, damn it. But anyway, Margaret wasn't one of them. So there you go.
All right, I've got a question here. Did you get any surprises while writing, things that led the story in a direction different than what you expected?
Interesting question. Oh yeah, the sort of fight they had in the middle of the book, and Margaret gives her be gone and she goes, but then she comes back. Look, originally that was supposed to be just a standard boilerplate fight, like most other books, and you have the fight and then it goes on, and then they come back days, weeks later and resolve it. They wouldn't. Neither of them would let them go like that. They insisted that it be resolved almost immediately, and I was surprised. I fought them, but I lost, and so within the same night, Olivia trundles back to see Margaret with her offering of cat food and a metal file, and sorts it all out because it's just very her.
Do you read a lot of crime novels, and are the ones you mentioned your favorites? If not, what do you read most?
I don't read crime novels. I'm more into sci-fi. I really like No Shelter But the Stars. That who wrote that? Just came out.
Virginia
Anyone?
Black.
Virginia Black.
Thank you very much. That's a good one. That's those are the books I sort of prefer to read. I like Fletcher Delancey's, Carfenian. How do you say that series? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Not crime, no.
I have a question from Laura. In many of your novels, there's a constant pull between characters who in some ways represent innocence and experience and positivism. Oh my God, 2 a.m. Cynicism, dreamers, realists, younger and older. And yet, in most cases, the innocent character will lose their innocence, and that's when the more experienced one will become more protective of them. Jesus, Laura, what a question. To the point of even helping to complot revenge schemes, sort of solidarity. Where does Lee Winter stand in all of this? Is there a dreamer or more of a realist behind the pen writing these characters? And how important is innocence versus experience to you? That was a
I
novel in
hadn't,
itself.
yeah, no, I hadn't really thought about it in those terms when I wrote those characters. What I really like is to display the grump character leaping in to be protective of the Sunshine character, because often you'll find the Ice Queens don't say that much. So you don't really always know what they're thinking, but you can tell by their deeds what they feel. So when you have the Grump leaping in to be protective of the Sunshine, I love that. And maybe the poor old Sunshine has lost some of her innocence in the process that she needs to be protected, but it's never about the loss of innocence. That's sort of the side effect. Um, it's about the cool character showing that she cares more than anything else, I think.
A different question. Which of your books do you like talking about most, and why is it the brutal truth?
I like Elena Bartel. She's fabulous. But really, my favorite book at the moment is Chaos Agent. That just rips your heart out and stomps on it, but it starts out really funny. Isn't that evil of me? That is so evil of me, isn't it?
Yeah, how can you look in the mirror? How?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I should twirl a moustache at this point and say "bwahaha," but yeah, I like it. Just starts out so innocently, and you think, "Oh, that's so fun! Oh, it's like the Fixer all over again," but it's not. It's not.
You devious woman. Um, Jade?
Yeah. Do you have a scene from the book that you think back on and think, yeah, I really nailed that, or a scene you're particularly proud of? This question could be about Vengeance or any other book.
Mm. I don't know why I like this scene. I just don't know why, but I like it when she goes to enact vengeance, enact speak words, enact vengeance on Timothy, and he turns out to be kind of a decent guy. And you just don't expect that. And he's just like, oh, yeah, a bit dark that you're ruining my car, but I suppose I deserve it. And it still makes me laugh. He seemed pretty decent. I like that. I did.
Yeah, that got mentioned in the book club. Somebody really appreciated that he was kind of like, "Oh, hey, you got one," when a bird finally came by. So that was much appreciated.
That's great. That's great. And the other thing is someone left a review where they um, said what they really appreciated was the maturity with which they dealt with their fight. Like they discussed it like adults and they wasn't storming off and all that. Well, they kind of was storming off, but she came back. That was such a conscious choice to make them just talk it out and say, look, I can see that I hit all your soft spots and I can see why you were lashing out and I can see all this and let's work on that. And I get a bit frustrated with books where really like women who are old enough to know better are acting like teenagers. No offense to teenagers, but you know what I mean, where they're just not talking. And they're just like, you have offended me, storms out, slams door, gone for 3 chapters. I really, really wanted to have characters who would just go, okay, that was awkward. Let's talk about it. Because I just think, hey, let's do that. That'd be great.
It's refreshing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've said before that your inspiration comes from all sorts of places, pictures, um, Angela's Michelle voice, etc. Was there something particular that inspired you to write Margaret Blackwood? And kind of piggybacking with that, we've got a question about all your Pinterest boards. Do you start writing characters and places first, having a vague idea of what they look like, or do you find pictures first and build descriptions around that?
I do the vague idea first, and then if I find a picture of a character or an actress or something that fits, it really helps me solidify in my mind where I'm going with them. And I'll often stick them up and have them while I'm writing, and it's really useful. As for Margaret, I really like the idea that she was really angular, gothic almost, black and vampiric, like a vampire, and sort of sweeps into rooms. And then I saw Motherland Fort Salem and General Older, I think her name is, and she would sweep into the room. She was all cheekbones and elbows, and I thought, whoa. So she was great, and also she also had a bit of Morticia Adams about it too. I just love that essence of her. So yeah, the more I thought about her sort of dark gargoyleness, it really helped develop, how I wrote the book.
Jamie asks, I really enjoyed all the media and book references, especially in Margaret's diary. And how much research did you do to choose all those books, or were you already familiar with them?
Oh no, confession time. Damn it. I hope no one would ask me this. Um, I read one of those books out of all of the books referenced. In fact, I read all the journals. Those dreary library articles she was quoting from. They're all real. I read all those, every last boring one of them. But the books, no. I was looking for crime books, female authors, or mainly female characters that I thought would be something that the book club would read, or Margaret would read, or whatever. And then I looked at all the reviews and heard what people said. And one of the reviews was just absolutely hilarious. So I quoted that one about the slippery eels and bowels and things. And it's like, yeah. But no, the only one I read, I actually listened to, I can't remember the name. It was about the doctor who has agoraphobia and ends up on a road trip and finds herself and comes home. And I thought that is a great story for Margaret's, to parallel Margaret's life, about how she was hiding and then she came out of her shell. So, yeah. But the others, no, not so much. Hangs head in shame.
Um, okay, this is a funny question. Donna asked, as a biology nerd, I couldn't help wondering what kind of penguin Trip was. Is he a Gen 2?
Is he a what to?
I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Uh, well, originally, oh God. So originally, when I was looking up taxidermy penguins online to find which one would be Trip,
Oh,
I
your
found
Google
this.
history would be so fun.
I know it's awful. So I found this maggoty, disgusting, revolting looking half dead thing that looked like it would probably travel around the combi van for 10 years. And, so originally that was my penguin. And then the more I looked at it, I thought, this is the most disgusting looking penguin I've ever seen. It was quite small. It looked like a baby fairy penguin. I thought, this is the most disgusting penguin. So I thought, I'm going to have to do better than that. Then the book cover came out and the graphic artist had just summarily decided it was going to be, I think that's a King Emperor on the cover. I thought, all right, I could write King Emperor in the book. But then I realized in the book it says that it's only like the size of a shoebox. So in the end, it's just what it is, just a small penguin of penguiny sorts and types with a beak and feet. And let's not go any further than that. I'm sure there's a biology term for a bird like that, a penguiny bird.
Or a drug mule
Yes, a drug mule. Oh,
penguin.
God, that was too funny. Some people got really, really freaked out by the fact it was a taxidermy bird. Not they thought stuffed penguin literally meant like a stuffed toy, and when they realised it was no, once real, they noped out of the book so fast. My God, and I felt kind of bad for them. It's like, yeah, I know. It's a good thing I didn't put up a picture of the maggoty penguin, isn't it?
Probably is a really good thing, yeah. All right, I've got one here that says, how do you think being a reporter previously affects the way you write, content, style, etc.?
um, it means I'm good on a deadline. Look, honestly, when I wrote decades long as a journalist, you learn to be really succinct and cut out descriptive prose unless it's absolutely necessary, and you race to the corner of the block instead of amble there slowly and stopping to smell the roses. So I had to unlearn a lot of stuff when I became an author, but some things still remain. Like I'm still very plotty, very plot driven, and I admire authors like Anna K. Wren and Fiona Z, who are just so descriptive and beautifully so. And I sit there and think, how do they do that? It's just so opposite of years and years and years of just the facts, ma'am. So yeah, it's good, and it helps me be very fast paced and to the point. It's bad in that I don't really think I ever quite got down pat all the descriptive genes that other authors have. So yeah.
Okay. How do you think your path through fan fiction shows up in your writing? And how do you think it would be different if you hadn't started in fan fiction?
I had to start in fan fiction because it never entered my mind that I could write books. There was just no path in my brain that thought, oh yeah, write a book. I just thought that was for very special, talented other people, not me. So I was always going, if I was going to write for fun, I was always going to be as a fan fiction author. I also became a fanfic writer because when I was a journalist for decades, and then they made me a sub-editor, which means I basically laid out features. I edited other people's features. Occasionally I rewrote some when they needed help, but my writing was gone. And I felt I really missed it. So that's why I started writing fanfic. Then Ilva contacted me. They'd seen my biggest fanfic, which had had like 1 million views or something, and said, write us a book. And I was like, oh, you're crazy, crazy people. Those Germans are funny, aren't they? But it turns out she was legit, and it was a legit offer. And so I wrote her the Red Files. But how does it help? How did it help my path? I don't know. I think it helped in that it denied me writing. So I was forced to write fanfic, which in turn made me write a book.
What's a question about this novel that you wish someone would ask you so you could talk about it?
I've got nothing. Sorry, I've got nothing.
Some seriously good questions here, so.
I'm so pleased. People, I'm really impressed with your questions. Having read so many lame interviews done by like mainstream reporters sometimes, because they get so bored with their job and they'll just ask really stupid things like, tell us about your movie. Is this your first movie? Shit like that. And you just go, oh God. But you're asking me wonderful questions.
We're
Fabulous
diving
questions.
right in. Jade, do you have another one?
Yeah, I've got one for you. The majority of your books contain outright ice queens or damaged frosty protagonists. Why did you choose this trope? Is it your favorite? What led you to some of the most iconic ice queen frosty characters we know in sapphic fiction?
Well, you know how they say write what you know? I write what I love. And honestly, I love ice queens. I date ice queens. I'm living with an ice queen, even though she denies it. But yeah, and I have tried to not write ice queens, and it just didn't go so well for me. So yeah, I'm sticking with what I know and love.
On that note, what did Sam think of this novel?
Well, she hasn't read it yet. She read 4 chapters that she beta read,
Oh,
and then told me to go off and finish, what was it, Revenge Planning for Murderers, I think she called it, and disappeared. And I haven't seen her since on that topic. So I don't know. It's funny because one of her exes I've actually, you know, I've immortalized in this book one of her exes for what he did to her years and years and years ago. And you'd think she'd want to read on to find out how I gave Martin his justice. I even gave him the same name and the same occupation. Martin was the PR guy, this
all right.
Svengali-like character who deserted poor Olivia in the street filled with prostitutes and druggies, and yeah, over a
Well, it
fight,
sounds like he's
over a book.
perfect.
Yeah, so I was very faithful in the recounting of the asshole. You'd think she would read that chapter, but she has not.
She's
Well,
missing out.
definitely, definitely. So we're mindful of the time. Um, do you have time for like 5 more questions?
Of course,
Yeah,
I have
right.
cleared my morning because it's that or go out in the very hot sunshine, and I say no. I vote no.
Oh, we'll keep here for hours. So how did you come up with the hilarious vengeance plans, except for Martin?
Oh well, well, yeah, he was so obvious. How did I? Eh. I always wanted to have one physical thing, like the physical humor of people crawling along a ladder. Poor Margaret. Actually, I should say lucky Margaret. Originally, she was going to end up hanging upside down from a rope with a skirt flapping around her ears in a state of utter disarray. And I thought, no, that is just too cruel, too humiliating. Could you imagine just swinging back and forward like a clock pendulum waiting to be rescued? No, couldn't do it. But I did want one physical scene, and whatever I came up with, I thought it's just got to be something that they're so easily thwarted on. And I love the idea of competent women failing spectacularly because they just assume that, I mean, how hard could it be to get vengeance on someone? It turns out it's actually harder than you think. But yeah, I can't remember specifically. I just did want that one physical scene, and Margaret should be writing me thank you letters for what I didn't do to her.
And with a fear of heights, that would have been terrible.
Oh God. I think she would have just been like, just kill me now.
Have you ever inserted milk into a chair?
No.
Because that was brilliant. I'm like, oh, okay.
I
I
have had milk that's gone off and smelled in the sun, and you're just like, oh God, at least you can easily throw it out. But imagine if you couldn't, and you couldn't find the
oh,
source. Yeah, Tina
well,
deserved that.
true, very true. Um, and the cake as well. Too bad she didn't put the
Oh,
name on there.
yeah, oops.
Oops.
Oh, come on.
A vengeance cupcake would have been good too. Do you have another one, Jake?
Yeah. In your other books, specifically the Truth series, the fact that certain plants and flowers hold specific meanings and play a part in the storyline, why did you lean into that?
I just thought it'd be funny, basically. I mean, everything's open to interpretation, and I just thought it'd be hilarious if they just kept having cross signals over flowers meaning the wrong thing. Yeah.
It definitely is. This one's I love this question. We love the nod to Requiem playing the cello. When would vengeance be set during the time of Requiem's story? In other words, before or after she gives up killing people?
Sorry, are you asking the time frame? The
Timeline of when they overlap. So we
oh,
see Requiem playing the
right.
cello. Where in her story would that have happened?
Okay, let me think about that. No, it's an excellent question. Excellent. We know from First Class Villains, the short story where everyone meets, Requiem has yet to go back to Ellison. That's -2. All right. Yeah, she's still killing them, I think. Pretty sure. I think, yeah. She certainly hasn't gone to Vienna because she's in Melbourne. So it's before the end of Requiem. I'd say it's around about when she's doing all those stunts where she has to play for the Melbourne Cup and so on, you know.
Yeah.
I have another one because we love your books. How quickly do you write them?
Not as quickly as I'd like. I mean, I've been putting out one a year at the moment. I mean, okay, so Breaking Character, I wrote that in about 2 months. And Hotel Queens, I wrote in 18 months. So it just depends. The one I'm writing at the moment now is killing me slowly. So, oh, God knows. But yeah, when the words are flowing, about 2 months. When the words are not flowing, about 6 months. And then there's all the editing time and stuff like that. So,
Last question, Jade.
Yep, we've got one more. Which of your ice queens do you think would get along the best?
that I'd get along with.
Would get along with each other best?
Well, I mean, depending on whether you see Elizabeth Thornton as an ice queen or not, or just British, she'd probably get on with most people as long as they didn't bother her too much. Yeah, changing the script. Yeah, I think Sam would get on with everyone as long as they didn't bother her too much. Noticing a theme. Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah. I think they're all pretty, I mean, they're all as long as they don't people don't bother them, they'd be polite, except for Requiem, who just would like get out of my face, you annoying fool, you knuckle dragging excuse for a bag of humanity, that kind of thing. But yeah.
On that note, one little bonus, who do you think would get along the least? Like, which of the ice queens would hate each other the most?
Oh well, Requiem would hate everyone, like everyone. Like if their name is not Alison, she hates you. Just take that as written.
I'm just mindful for the time. So just I mean, your work in progress is slowly killing you, but before it does, what is it about and what's next?
Oh well, I keep starting it and stopping it and starting it. It's Ottilie Zimmerman from the Villain series, connecting with Monique Carson, the CEO Sex Fantasies expert from Hotel Queens. And they're very opposite people, as you'd probably be aware. And that's what intrigues Monique, because she's never met a woman like Ottilie Zimmerman. Never, ever in her life would she imagine meeting someone with these incredibly high walls, who's secretive, who can read people as well as she can read people, and who has seemingly no interest in sex. So this is someone that she'd find fascinating. So it's killing me slowly because that Zimmerman woman, she is frustrating. She is fighting me. She refuses to give up her secrets. I ask her politely. I ask her rudely. I just beg her. And some days she's like, yes, some days no. So at one point I put it aside and started working on another book. But then that turned out to be a disaster because I started jokingly call it vengeance planning for professionals, because that's kind of how it was reading. It was far too similar. So I've abandoned that. And now I'm back playing around in Vegas with those two insufferable fools.
Maybe you should have Olivia bring her like a quality muffin so she opens up and talks.
Yeah. I fear for what would happen to Olivia, because I think that Ottilie would just simply deconstruct her in 2 minutes to the point where she'd leave in tears.
Oh, well, then she has Margaret to console her. So that's good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Okay. Well, people, we're at the end of our time. Thank you so much for joining us, Lee, and answering all our questions about everything. We hope you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you once again for such interesting questions. It's a real pleasure to have such good questions.
Well, all the compliments to everyone. Yay!
Thanks everyone for being here at this different hour for us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye, everyone.